The Temple of Hua Hin in Thailand. Atop the hill of this Buddhist sanctuary, silhouettes are moving. The assembly has begun. These silhouettes are crab-eating macaques. The light of dawn provides the signal to commence this daily ritual. The tribe sets off down towards the town. Some 300 monkeys hurtle down the hill of the temple. Their determined group appears to be unstoppable. The macaques are on a mission. They go into homes, climb onto roofs, and swarm over the streets and boulevards. They invade the town. In the seaside resort of Hua Hin, bathed by the Gulf of Thailand, the inhabitants are resigned to seeing the macaques flooding the pavements and swinging from the power lines. As they set off for work, these roaming monkeys have now become a part of their daily lives. These excitable invaders have come to feed, scavenging around for leftover food. The crab-eating macaques are the most common monkeys on the planet. Their population growth is due to their high adaptability. Just like humans, they have been able to adjust to very diverse environments. Mischievous and cheeky, they are completely at ease in urban areas and even thrive in them. It can be all too much for humans, who see their territory invaded by these shameless intruders without any manners, who can cause substantial damage. When they are not overrunning human territory, the crab-eating monkeys enjoy the mangroves and their brackish water. The maze of branches and the aerial roots of the mangrove trees provide a safe and tranquil environment. The monkeys go down to the seashore to seek out their favorite meal. Not far from Hua Hin, Koram Island has remained unspoiled and undisturbed by human activity. A colony of around 80 crab-eating macaques flourish happily on the island. Dr. Amanda Tan has spent 2 years on this island studying the macaques. The primatologist has observed the behavior of the group and has gotten to know the character of every individual that she has filmed and photographed, using her camera like a notebook.
So I've been to Koram Island every year since 2013. And every year we keep track of which monkeys are present in the group, or which monkeys have disappeared, or which monkeys had new babies. And all this is very important for long-term records of taking note of who is related to who, these kinds of things. So in front of me I have my identification sheet, which was the last time I updated it. There were 84 individuals in the group, and we have pictures of all the individuals here so that any researcher coming to the team can look at these pictures and learn to identify the animals. When you watch monkeys for a long time, you definitely know they have different personalities. Some are more brave or more curious, some are shy. If you know the individuals, you can tell their social relationships. The females are born to the group and they will stay in the group for the rest of their lives. Quite often you can see an adult female, her daughter, even her granddaughters, sometimes her auntie or cousins. So the females are all bonded in small family groups within the large group. But for males it's different. So for example, this guy here, he's the alpha male of the group currently. He joined the group about 4 years ago. He protects the group. And in other areas where there's other monkey groups around, he will help to defend the group's home range against the other groups.
With few plants or fruits available on Koram, the monkeys have had to modify their dietary habits to rely almost entirely on food sources from the sea. Their name reflects their liking for crabs, from which they skillfully extract the flesh like real seafood enthusiasts. By turning over pebbles or digging in the sand, these primates also search for shellfish on the rocks and beaches, which will provide their bodies with the essential nutrients they require. This manna from heaven of mollusks and crustaceans satisfies the needs of the whole colony. But while there is a plentiful supply of plants in the mangrove forest, here the monkeys are dependent on the tides of the sea, because it is only at low tide that it gives up its treasures. So their fishing requires sustained effort during a specific period of time, except when the food gets delivered right to their doorstep. Like this buoy, which has become detached from its net and has drifted to the shores of Koram. A garland of shells is wound around its mast. These shellfish, unknown to the island, provide a welcome opportunity to vary the menu. And so the macaques make the most of all the opportunities offered up by the sea. A little group has spotted a dead fish which is floating on the surface, a very appetizing meal. A female who is braver than the rest dives into the water. But why does she suddenly turn back? The gourmands gather on the shore, but not one seems to dare to try their luck. Macaques are normally more audacious. What is holding them back? Finally, it is the turn of another female, who grabs the fish without any hesitation. It is Ying, the alpha female of the group, the boss in some ways. The spoils are hers by right. Because within this macaque society, there are clearly defined positions and ranks that must be adhered to. Ying, at the top of the hierarchy, enjoys the privilege of eating first. The others look on at their queen's meal with envy. They have to wait until she deigns to share a few leftovers with them. And if an impatient monkey doesn't respect the protocol, Ying puts it back in line straight away. Another female seizes the opportunity to grab the fish, a real treat for her baby. Koram Island is located within a marine national park. Here, the macaques like to meet up after their fishing endeavors. It is a spectacular observation area for Amanda. This coastal park is full of high cliffs that welcome agile climbers.
Now we are on the mainland in Khao Sam Royot National Park. And in Thai, Khao Sam Royot means mountain with 300 peaks. And so these mountains are covered with quite dry forests. And you can find in the national park here some langurs, and langurs are leaf-eating monkeys, so you can find them in the dry forest eating the leaves.
These are dusky leaf monkeys, part of the langur family. For them, these cliffs are a magnificent playground. As vegetarians, they eat all day long, consuming up to 2 kilos of leaves and flowers. Luckily, macaques and langurs live peacefully side by side atop the cliffs.
They might climb on the cliffs to avoid some predators maybe. Or sometimes these cliffs, because of the way the rocks are formed, it can collect water from the rain. And so the monkeys can come and have a drink because the region is quite dry at some times of the year.
The macaques are sharing a special moment with their little ones. This female is babysitting for her sister. In this matrilineal society, the babies are often passed around. Within the same family group, the females trust each other because they are related and stay within the same group all their lives. On Koram Island, a birth is always a big event. This little one is just a few hours old, born after 6 months of gestation. He is still a tiny, fragile baby weighing just 350 grams. His dark, fluffy natal coat will become lighter as he grows older. At this age, the little crab-eating macaque never strays too far away from his mother. This close bond is vital to his development. He will stay with her until he is 2 years old. time of high tide has arrived. When the tide ebbs, the waters of the Gulf of Thailand reveal many rocks which provide the macaques with a vast fishing ground. When the tide is low, a huge platter of seafood is served up to them. For the macaques, it is time for a feast. The entire community has thrown itself into this quest for food. To find the shellfish, they have all their own methods and manage as best they can. Opening them is another matter. The shells are stubborn. They withstand the strong teeth of the macaques and don't surrender easily at all. To get to the flesh of the mollusks, some macaques have developed a simple method that consists in smashing the shells onto the rocks. This female prefers to choose a rock that has mollusks already attached to it. She will smash it directly onto the ground to achieve her goal, a tactic that clearly works. To open the oysters, some crab-eating macaques have developed a more evolved and efficient technique that they have mastered perfectly. Here is a demonstration by Plawan, the dominant male of the group. First, he chooses a piece of rock with the shape and dimensions that best fits his needs. Plawan hits the shells with it until they finally offer up their flesh. And so he uses his rock as a tool, an unusual practice in the animal kingdom. Isolated from the mainland and their fellow primates, the macaques of Coram have thereby developed their own culture. But Plawan can do much better. He also uses the famous and very ancient technique of the hammer and anvil, which up until recently was believed to be the preserve of humans.
What she's doing is, we call it pound hammering. And this is when they take a sea snail or a clam or some food and place it on a big stone that we call an anvil stone. And then they will take a large hammer stone and use the face of the hammer to smash it open. So this is a different technique from the way they crack open rock oysters, where they use the point of the tool to axe hammer open the oyster. It's a great source of protein because the jungle on the island here, or the forest on the island here, it's not very rich in food sources. So the monkeys come out to the shore to exploit the coastal resources instead.
During his fishing trips, Plawan is always followed around by a group of youngsters. Trailing behind him, they make do with the leftovers.
So the young monkeys, they don't get taught. The parents don't teach them, and they learn by following the older monkeys around. So quite often when you see an older monkey using tools, you can find a few smaller, younger juveniles nearby, and the juveniles will watch the adults. And they also, after the adults have finished using tools, they come to take the leftovers. And so they learn in that way that using tools is a behavior that can get you some food.
They attentively observe this respected elder, and they soon copy his actions to ensure their own supply of food. This transmission of knowledge shows how a culture has developed within the Koram macaque colony.
They have different abilities of using tools, so not all of them can use tools. About 60% of the adults in this group can use tools, and some of them just never learn the behavior.
These young adults don't always yet have the strength needed to apply these techniques. But by putting all their effort into the struggle, they usually achieve their goals. When it is time to eat, the hierarchy of the group must always be respected. The dominant monkeys that haven't mastered the technique to open the oysters hustle the subordinates to get their food without too much effort. Up until the 1960s, scientists thought that it was only Homo sapiens who were capable of using tools. However, it has been discovered that the chimpanzees in Africa, the capuchin monkeys in South America, and very recently the macaques in Asia also use tools in order to obtain their food. The crab eaters of Koram Island are a good example of this. A scientific revolution in some ways, and motivation for us to re-examine our accepted notions of the animal kingdom. Preserved shorelines like those of Koram Island have become a rarity. In Thailand, the cities sprawl out into the whole coastline. The macaque monkey now has to share its territory with another mammal. In Hua Hin as well, buildings spring up like mushrooms. This relentless urban development doesn't disturb the lives of the crab-eating macaques from the temple at all. Quite the opposite. Each building holds the promise of a new adventure playground, such as lovely concrete walls and chic swimming pools. There, they can take a dip and have fun in a group after having dined out in town. At the hottest time of the day, the atmosphere is less lively in the natural surroundings of Koram Island. Time seems to stand still.
Now it's the high tide, so all the seafood is covered by the water and they have no tools to use and no seafood to eat, so it's family time now.
The group of macaques rest, taking a long nap that can last for up to 4 hours. It is the moment when the monkeys reach nirvana. They sleep and groom each other. The aim of this methodical nitpicking is to remove any ticks, leaves or dead skin which clog up their fur. I'll groom you if you groom me. But grooming is much more than that. It serves as a hairdressing service and massage treatment. It is heaven for the monkeys, the pinnacle of pleasure.
Grooming is very important for maintaining social relationships in the monkeys. They can use it to build relationships. They also use it to help each other keep clean. Or sometimes also if they want something from another individual, they will groom them. So for example, if a female has a baby, quite often other females will groom her so that they can play with her baby. Or the males will groom the females so that later on they can mate with them. There's many different functions for monkeys. They will take turns to groom each other, but sometimes also lower ranking individuals have to groom more the higher ranking individuals to get what they want, and higher ranking individuals get more grooming and they don't need to groom so much.
This practice strengthens the feeling of belonging to a group and being part of the same community, which are the foundations of the macaque society. And the flip side of this strong social cohesion, it is very difficult for an outsider to be accepted. This young adult left his group at puberty and wants to join this one. But unfortunately, he has chosen the wrong moment. There is rivalry among the strongest males who want to secure their rank in the hierarchy. The young outsider becomes the object of a political conflict. The group's dominance is at stake, and so each one asserts himself with biting and extreme violence. In this grim display of one-upmanship, it comes down to whoever goes furthest in showing their strength. It is a real lynching. Repeatedly bitten and beaten, the fate of the stranger appears to be sealed. While it is rare that such occurrences result in death, this unfortunate scapegoat will not escape. Macaques are not just funny characters who provide us with entertainment. Like other primates, and like us humans, they can also kill their fellow species.
Macaque societies are very political. Just like human societies, there's a lot of struggling for power, especially amongst the males. My guess is that it wasn't the alpha male who actually beat him up, because this alpha male seems quite calm most of the time. But what I think was that maybe the beta male or the second or third ranking male trying to exert more dominance were the ones who went and chased off the male that tried to join the group. So some males, we call them peripheral males. They got kicked out of the old group and they're looking for a new group to join, but they don't have the power to defeat the leaders of the current group. So they hang around on the outside, and sometimes they try to come in and make relationships with the females or make relationships with some lower ranking males, and eventually maybe they will try to fight against the alpha.
It is no easier being rejected from the group than being integrated into it. Excluded from the macaque society, a pariah's only option is to find a new territory, and fast, to avoid being lynched. Only escape will save him. Sometimes the fugitive has no choice but to dive into the sea and let himself drift with the current, in the vague hope of reaching a neighbouring island. No doubt that is also how the macaques first arrived on Coram. Will this banished monkey find a warm welcome on this small neighbouring island? Will he find acceptance in a friendlier group? He is going to find out that life on this small island isn't all fun and games, because there, this solitary male will only find other solitary males. This island is a kind of bachelor's club, a circle of exiles. With no females to conquer and no prospect of starting a family to reproduce, life becomes very boring. This boredom has long overwhelmed this group of a dozen macaques, who were all castaways from the neighbouring island of Coram. With scratched out eyes and injuries from fights, these males have to resign themselves to living with other males. It isn't hell, but it seems like it. They climb up high cliffs and onto buildings, fish on the coastal rocks, swim in the sea and in swimming pools. Macaques can adapt to any environment. But who would have thought that they would be equally at ease underwater? And yet they are able to hold their breath underwater for over 1 minute. And they have good reason to go diving. On this island, many tourists have the habit of throwing peanuts into the water, so it is a treat which requires some underwater effort. Macaques have perfect underwater vision, which allows them to easily collect the peanuts. Just like hamsters, they keep them stocked inside their cheeks. Attracted by this extraordinary show, tourists flock to the macaque territory in their droves, with a constant stream of arrivals throughout the day. The boats come and go constantly, highlighting the excesses of mass tourism. Luckily, playing the fool never killed anyone. But are the tourists imitating the monkeys, or is it the other way around? It's a long way to travel for a selfie. What effect does this excessive feeding have on the behavior of the macaque monkeys? Will it serve to create tame and obese circus monkeys? Thankfully, under Thai law, this feeding in the wild is restricted to fruits, plants and peanuts. As the last tourists of the day leave the island, the group of macaques can go back to the tranquility of their natural lifestyle. All excited about taking their photos, day trippers will in fact have seen very little of the real life of these monkeys. Luckily, on this island, without the peanuts of the tourists, the macaques have shellfish and oysters instead. But to be able to eat them, some use a very particular technique that is unique to them. The monkeys arm themselves with a large stone and throw it randomly at the rocks with both hands. The shells smash and their flesh is ready to be eaten. This stone throwing might seem less refined than the techniques of their Coram cousins, but it is just as efficient, maybe even more so. Throw it, break it, eat it. It was during a study on the impact of the 2004 tsunami on the local fauna and flora that scientists discovered that some crab-eating macaques on the islands were using tools. Here we can observe another original technique for throwing the stone. It is a first and a genuine scientific discovery. Amanda takes an avid interest in these stone-throwing macaques, a culture that the primatologist wasn't familiar with before.
It's really interesting for me to watch this because it's a different group that I never saw before. So he took a really large stone and he just threw it somewhere on the oyster rocks, and then he went to that spot to eat the oyster. It's a totally different style that I haven't seen on any of the islands before. It's very exciting. So we only have studied these two losing macaque populations on 3 different islands so far. But we know that there are many more islands that we haven't fully explored, and we know that monkeys are using tools there. So when we are able to go to these different places and see the differences between the groups, we can figure out what is the product of environment, what's the product of culture, how the monkeys are learning in different ways.
After fishing for oysters, it is finally time to play. These games where they nip at each other, shove each other, or pull each other's tails are all good-natured. Like grooming, it is another way of living together and forging and strengthening social bonds. But as the sun goes down, what happens to these urban macaques? With their food supply mission completed, the monkeys of Hua Hin go back up the hill of the temple. Unpopular in the town centre, here they are revered and protected. According to the Ramayana, one of the fundamental texts of Hindu culture, which is very popular in Thailand, the macaques are descendants of the god monkey Hanuman, a hero capable of lifting mountains and killing demons. To many, they are an object of worship and receive offerings of cornbread from temple visitors. The monks don't just protect the macaques, they look after the well-being of all the animals, like these stray dogs. They follow the teachings of Buddha, who, as confirmed by many sutra scripts, loves and respects all animals. For him, nothing can justify the violence that man subjects them to. At the temple, all animals are entitled to receive the kindness of the monks, but the concept of fair sharing isn't always respected by the macaques, who obviously don't have much interest at all in Buddhist and Hindu principles. However, they themselves are fed thanks to the generosity of pilgrims who offer them food throughout the day. Food is handed out to them in various centres of prayer on the hill of the temple. An indicator of good health and successful adaptation, the population growth of the macaque colony is, however, a real problem for the residents. A sterilization campaign was supposed to control their numbers, but it hasn't achieved the desired effect as yet. The number of monkeys is ever increasing. At sunset, the monks commence their evening prayer session. It is a liturgic chant that aims to attain wisdom by evoking positive feelings and a sense of connection to all living creatures. And these macaques are certainly full of life. They make sure that the monks know that too. They love to make noise on the corrugated iron roofs at prayer time. What if it is a way for them to participate in the ceremony by making music in their own special way? This fascination for sound has also been observed in Japan and Bali. Making sounds is a whole lot of fun. But when the instrument turns into a trampoline, then it's even better. This amateur musician has selected a stone that he rolls along the ground like a snowball. The sounds change according to the object used and the texture of the ground. Are we witnessing the birth of another kind of music here? The stone being rubbed against the ground produces a scent which the macaques seem to like very much. These games of sound create feelings of pleasure in the primates, part of the very fabric of life itself. For both the town and island macaques, this eventful day is drawing to a close. Like their cousins, the langurs, the macaques will now look for somewhere sufficiently high up to rest out of harm's way from any potential predators. We thought we knew everything about the macaques. We saw them as ordinary, stupid and invasive. We find them to be ingenious and intelligent, even capable of using tools. They are proficient divers, music lovers, and able to adapt to very different environments. Just like humans, they are also capable of the worst. They do belong to the same family tree after all. We would rather remember them playing in the swimming pool or the mangrove, with images of friendliness rather than those of violent conflict. And when all is said and done, these monkeys who want to see the sea simply remind us of the importance of a carefree existence, a prerequisite to the joy of living.